In this tutorial, we're going to cover part 1 of Liquid. I'm going to get right into this because Liquid is a rather complicated fight that requires a lot of knowledge and understanding of how the fight's supposed to go. So, first thing I'm going to point out is there are two kinds of controls that we're going to need. And that is the one you see if you push R1 once, the punch, and if you, while guarding, which is the L1, push R1, you get the strong punch. So, the strong punch, the fastest way to get it out is actually to simply hold L1 and just mash the R1 button, and you'll see that you have a 1-2 combo here for strong punches. For the sake of this part of the argument, Liquid's pretty irrelevant to what's going on. And then when it comes to normal punches, oh, sorry, before I get into that, one more thing with strong punches, while we're talking about the topic, is if you get Liquid to a ledge, so I'll see if I can actually get him to a ledge, sorry, about strong punches here, and if we could get, we can actually ledge trap Liquid. So if we can get him to a ledge, then what you can do is, you'll notice that when I do a strong punch, he's gonna get up and wipe his mouth. Use that as a time to immediately drop another 1-2. So whether he guards or not is dependent on his phase. In phase 1 you'll see he's guarding, but this is pretty much a ledge trap. If you mess up, things like that happen. That's not the fastest form to take him down, but that is a really nice way to successfully deal with Liquid if you're having issues. More importantly though, is attack with the punch, and that is the infinite. So 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. This is the infinite. It's very, the good thing about the infinite is it will keep him locked in this. That's why it's an infinite, like from the first game. The things about the infinite is it's not going to be immediately apparent what you need to do for the R1. It's not as easy as just pressing it twice. There is a rhythm to it, a pattern. It changes very slightly between phases, but it's pretty irrelevant. You're not really gonna notice that till you get it super nitty gritty. And you also can't, you have to do a 1-2, because if you just do a 1, if you just mash it repeatedly, you'll do a full combo. But if you just try to do an infinite on 1, like this, you'll actually end up pressing it too long, and you'll do a grab, because the game will register the 2 R1 presses as one long R1. Which is really weird, but it's what happens. So you want to make sure that you don't do that. And then the last thing about the infinite is, you notice when I started it, I was spinning in a circle. That's just how the game works, and it's completely fine. That's not an issue. Just like the fact that I died is not an issue, because we're not actually fighting Liquid yet. We're just talking about him. And dying lets me showcase these things. So the third form to fight him, and I'm gonna talk about this only here and no more because someone brought it up, is you can choke slam Liquid, and that's if you look here, a long press is a CQC, and if you do the long press while holding the analog in some direction, you'll grab, throw him, simply mash the triangle button, start this choke, and make sure you hold the R1. If you drop the R1 input, you'll stop the choke, and then once you do that, just mash the triangle button, and you'll do that punch on pretty much as soon as possible. The thing about the choke, it's about 20 seconds slower on Liquid Easy, and it goes continually slower from there, upwards to I think about 3 minutes slower on TBE, and it is really difficult to do on TBE successfully because of how Phase 3 works. And those would be, it's about 2 on Liquid Easy, 2 choke slams, 4 on the normals. Not certain what hard is, but based on how this game works, I'd reckon 5, and then TBE it is 7. There also seems to be, if you do the choke method, on Phase 1, Phase 3 seems to be a little faster, like a choke faster, but I don't know if that's true or not. Might be a placebo. There's so much going on in this fight that a lot of things are gonna be potentially a placebo here. And the last bit of controls I want to talk about is, if you'll notice the X button, it does duck or dash. That is these right here. You want to get used to dashing, and you can see why here. You could dash everything. You can dash into him, away from him, either side. Dashing is extremely useful. You can even counter moves just by dashing into him. Like, he did his shoulder charge, and I just dashed right into it and didn't even care. You don't want to... Oh, and you can also duck just like that. That works too for dodging things. Things you want to avoid doing, or you want to avoid blocking for the sake of blocking. On earlier difficulties, that's not really a big deal. It simply loses time. But on higher difficulties, what Liquid will do is he'll see you're blocking, he'll do his combo, and the 4 will actually break your block. And then the 5, which in most cases is a knockdown and a cutscene and a huge damage move, will hit you, and there's nothing you could do, because when your guard breaks, you're staggered. So you just have to suck that up and take that hit, which is why you want to avoid guarding or blocking. The other thing is, you'll notice that while dashing, if you push R1, you do a body blow here. I'll show it to you so you see what it looks like. That right there. You want to avoid doing that simply because it's honestly, it's a very low damage move, and it puts Liquid into a stagger state where he is immune to damage and knocks him back. So you're gaining very little from pulling that move off. Some general tips about combating Liquid is that each of Liquid's 3 phases, technically 4, but is HP gated. And I'll talk about the specific HP gates in their videos. But what I mean by that is, if you look at Liquid's health up in the top, there is a set point where you'll actually stop doing damage to Liquid, and he will he'll just stop taking damage, and you have to in order to meet that AP, in order to get past that gap, you have to successfully start a new attack chain. It has to be a new attack chain. The fact that this is called the Infinite implies that this is a non-stop attack chain. So you'll notice here, his health isn't going down, but because I'm not stopping the chain, he's not phasing. Now, the thing about this is, I'm gonna sit here so I can talk, is that once he's at this point, I can phase him with anything. I can do a punch, I can do a strong punch, I can do a shoulder check, I could do a body bash, I could even do a CQC, and it will phase him. it does not matter at all what you do. As long as you're in range for the attack to hit, it will automatically do the phase. And this is for 1, 2, or phase 1, 2, and 3 all have this. Another thing to note with him is that only certain moves can kill. His 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 2, whatever it is, will never kill you. It doesn't kill you. It has to be a unique move that kills you. And I'll get more into that in the specific section videos. If any video section is giving you a hard time, feel free to check that out. Well, I'll talk about those moves there. Usually, though, when you're fighting him, you'll see there he just did a 1, 2, 3 on me. In phases 1 and 2, it's 1, 2, 3, and in phases 3, it's a 1 and 2. If you get hit by the 1, you're probably getting hit by the 2 and 3. It's pretty difficult to dodge. The other option is you'll dodge the 1 and 2, and you'll get hit by the 3 and potentially 4, but you could usually dodge out of the 4. But that's just something to consider. It's very minimal time loss, but it is time loss. And those usually happen because you dropped the infinite, or Liquid did something weird. Because he could do weird things. Sometimes you'll be at an infinite and they'll hit you anyway. To be completely honest, it's your fault more than the game's. I think I've only seen it happen one time ever where I could honestly say it was the game's fault. Because usually you're just too slow. So we talked about how you have to start a new combo. Okay, yep. And the last couple of notes here. These pillars, you see them around. There's this one, which is pretty irrelevant. That pillar shows up in phase 2. These pillars are in phase 1 and phase 3. So you want to avoid fighting by these pillars, because if you dash to the side, but the pillar, I'll see if I could actually show you. But the pillar is still here, especially on like these shoulder dashes. I don't know how I avoided that. He can actually still connect with you because you didn't move out of the way, but you're not in the dash iframes anymore. So you have to be careful about these pillars, and you want to try to avoid them for you. But Liquid himself, you can actually get him against one of these pillars and then punish him. Things like the strong attack, he'll actually go less distance from you. You can punch him into it, or similar to the edges. And unfortunately, he'll get around them pretty quickly, so they're pretty irrelevant. But there's something to keep note of. You have to know they're there, and if they're gonna be in your way or not. Another thing is that you see if you dash into the ledge, you actually get this animation here. You are completely immune to damage doing this. So if you're fighting Liquid on the edge and he's about to do a big bad attack and you're worried about it, simply dash into the ledge. It'll lose time, but it's safer than taking a ton of damage on accident. And then the last thing when it comes to general combat with Liquid that you need to know is that the best way to damage Liquid if you're having trouble finding openings is when he dashes. When he dashes to you, that's an opening. Just, he dashes, you punish. And that's gonna be with pretty much any kind of movement closer he has. Like right there, he dashed, and that's because on the second half of his dash, he actually doesn't have any frames of invulnerability. And you could start hitting him. Actually, I say the second half, but I think it's the last quarter. You can start hitting him pretty much immediately once he starts recovering. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be good to punish after that dash or that movement closer like that. You'll also notice there that he phased like really early, differently from some of the earlier phases. That's because these HP gates, they fluctuate with a couple things. I don't know all of the factors. One of them is, did you CQC liquid? One of them is, did you strong punch liquid? One of them is, how long have you been here? The game actually doesn't want the fight taking super long. So if you're having too much trouble, like taking a long time, I believe potentially it's possible to sit here long enough so that you'll knock him out in one punch, but it's not realistically worth it and probably not actually a thing. But yeah, there's a lot of factors that I don't understand, and I don't think anyone does, into how those fluctuate. But if you're doing it fast, then it'll be pretty consistently at the HP gates. So a liquid you want is gonna be about 35 seconds phase 1, about 48 to 55 seconds phase 2, and probably a minute 20 phase 3, depending on how things go. Those are all given. Some of those are good, some of those are bad, but all in all, Liquid himself should take anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5 minutes for a good fight. And yeah, that's all there is to Liquid in terms of the general strats. I'll see you in the next one for phase 1.